Well, hello there and welcome to Travels with Geordie. If this is your first visit, my name is Peter Knowles and I live on this wooden motor cruiser here in Victoria, British Columbia, amongst others, along with the loving memory of my pup Geordie, all the while fixing them all up for some pretty ambitious cruising. If that's the sort of thing that you might find interesting, please consider sticking around and subscribing. I'd love to have you. This is a big day. I'm moving. Yes, it's the end of May and we get kicked out of this lovely spot here at the Causeway Marina in downtown Victoria. Well, to be fair, we don't get kicked out, but the moorage would about quadruple if we were to stay. So this is the beginning of the cruising season. Well, even that isn't quite true because this is the beginning of getting all the boats in one spot up in Genoa for some last minute finagling and figuring, and there's still plenty of work to get done on Poem, even just to get her ready to go outside the shed. In other words, if you've been following along, she doesn't have any varnish on her yet. So lots to do, but the main focus of the work for the next couple of weeks is going to be on Geordie again, working on both a galley, and that's a big a big perk for me and for Lady Zephyrus, who's going to join me in a cruise north this summer. But hopefully I'll also get the upper helm in place, the actual steering helm. And as you may be able to see over my shoulder, the coho is just leaving the harbor, which means I pretty much have the harbor to myself. Well, sort of. At least I don't have any ships to worry about. Let's get our line slipped and underway. It's gonna be a long day. And we'll begin by having a quick check of the engine. First things first, oil. Just fine. I'll make sure the sea strainer is not too full of junk, and it's not. And coolant, and it's got plenty of coolant. Check the belts are happy, check linkages, both the throttle and the transmission. Very happy. I'm actually going to return fuel to the starboard tank, and that's about it. Okay, getting ready to go. Goodness, it's hot. I thought I'd share a little bit about how I decide when it's safe to go. Okay, this is the British Columbia, or actually it's the National Marine Weather Forecasting System, and of course red is a warning. Victoria is down here at the bottom of Vancouver Island, so I'm going to check on where I'm going straight out into the strait right now. And it's strong wind warning in effect, but it's wind light increasing to west 15 this afternoon, so I will be out of this area by the time that happens. So if we go back and look at where I'm going into, which is Harrow Strait, we have similar forecast, wind light becoming southwest 5 to 15 this afternoon. 5 to 15 southwest is no concern to me. It's not a lot of wind, and I'll be sheltered by Saanich Peninsula, so no concerns there. The other thing then I want to look at is currents. Now this is an amazing system that's available here in British Columbia. It's normally done with a series of booklets and a key for each year, but now it's available in an app. So it shows me all the currents all the way through the Southern Gulf Islands and the Strait of Juan de Fuca here. So at the current date and time, I'm going to come out of Victoria Harbor here and ride a nice flood here up through and around the corner. But by the time I get out here into the strait heading north, I'll be fighting some current, but that'll be in a few hours. So if we switch ahead a couple of hours, now I can ride the roller coaster all the way up through around Sydney and all the way up to Genoa Bay, which is right there. Excellent. So that's pretty much summed up how I choose when to go, and today turned out to be a pretty good day to go, which is handy because it also fit with my schedule, which isn't always the case. So I'm pretty much ready to go. Lady Zephyrus is going to toss me my lines so we can spark her up. Beauty. the pleasant steam over, a little bit ahead of schedule. I thought the bottom would be absolutely covered with growth, but we managed to keep a reasonable headway on. I'm over here on one of the work docks at the Marina, where I'm going to be able to do some additional work outside, which is really, really great. What I have to do though is vacate it now so that another boat can come here over the next couple of days, but I have no dinghy, so I'm going over the anchor. So I'm going to walk over to the shed, get the dinghy, bring it back, go back. Yeah, I think you can figure out what I'm talking about. All right, let's recover the dinghy. Good morning. Well, this is the last big push this week. I have to get paint on the cabin tops and varnish on, and before that, stain on the cabin sides, so that Pome can actually go out on a mooring or on a dock possibly, because Lady Zephyrus needs to be able to bring MV Zephyrus in here next week. So should be possible. It's just a bunch of sanding and oiling and varnishing. On top of that, there's going to be a fair amount of filling. Well, if I can give you just a little example right here. Little areas where I'm going to have to put some 295 in to deal with voids and then just sand it clean. In fact, in this case, I'll make a mess. I'll have to do it and then restain it. But because I haven't stained anywhere further forward here, this is all ready for stain. But in the few spots where it's going to need some filler, we can do that. You saw me put these bungs in last week, so I'll sand them off. But just little areas like this and around the door, obviously there are some voids that are going to need some attention. Okay, let's get to work. Gosh, it almost seems like a shame to walk on this lovely sole, but that's what it's for. Oh yeah, and it's so nice and solid now. Well, one of the first things to do today is actually turn the boat around. It has been wonderfully convenient to have easy access to the cockpit and to get aboard all this time, but now that I don't need to do so much work aboard, it's much easier actually if I turn the boat around and I can get the bow right up in here and see what I'm doing a little bit better. As the boat does not operate, I'm going to use a little dinghy as a tugboat. It should be fine, right? It looks pretty still out there. Should be fine. that I knew was going to take a lot longer than I'd hoped. And well, it's a phenomenon that I am vulnerable to, thinking that things will take less time than I'd hoped, was the foredeck. At first glance, I thought the paying, in other words, the sealant between the planks, wasn't in too bad shape. Well, that was optimistic. It really isn't in very good shape, and it's going to need to be completely reefed. And of course, because this is old school, these are solid planks, it's also caulked with cotton, which I probably should reef out and recaulk with fresh cotton so that this deck is absolutely waterproof for the next iteration of its life. But even though it's a tiny foredeck, there's a lot of seams, and it's a collection of different generations of paying, some of which is very, very hard and hard to remove. So there's another couple of days doing something absolutely miserable in the heat. Gosh, it's getting hot. Okay. Here's an interesting cross-section of what's been in there. The cotton, of course, and this older, very dry, very brittle, that's just a squeak of the fenders, paying or sealant, which is just not gonna last. In some places there's some newer stuff on top, but it's gonna have to be done right. Oh, what a job. As miserable as this has been, and it's going to continue to be, it is so good that I'm doing it. So much of it was loose. So much of the old paying was just a dry, crumbly mess. It's a lot of work, though. A lot of work. And I thought, just out of curiosity, I'd pull out what appears to be pretty much the worst seam on the deck, and it's some newer material, but the worst thing is there's no cotton in here, so that is definitely causing some major leaks. Doesn't mean it's easy to reef. Okay then, so I've applied sealant to all the gaps, and there's rather a large gap here, which I'm going to explain on the other side why that has such a big gangly mess on it. Now, this is the push it in as hard as you can and then sand it off technique of caulking, rather than trying to put a neat bead in and call it done, because I really want this well tooled into the work. And because this product, $2.95, sands so well, it's just so much easier to just get it all over everything and sand it into a nice neat fillet afterwards. Okay, so the cabin top, the aft cabin top, all the windows, those two big holes at the back, the door, and this little problem here. Let me go and show you what that actually is on the other side. Okay, so this joint between the cabin sides and the deck had me a little confused at first. Obviously, there was something here before, and by all those teeny tiny little holes, I'm going to say it was a piece of copper held on with a whole lot of tacks. Which explains, in the cockpit some weeks ago, I may have said, what are all these little holes? Well, once I thought about it, I realized what it was. Because, of course, the boat was built a long time ago, and sealants weren't at the same caliber as they are today. So you can see there is a sealant in there now, and someone some time ago abandoned the little copper strip. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to top up that sealant, but it may be in time I actually put another little quarter round on here, as there is pretty much everywhere else on the boat. Okay. Goop. And there we go. Yes, it looks like a horrible mess now, but quick run over with the sander and that will be quite tidy. Well, I can say as much fun as it was to stay aboard home for most of this project, I must admit these days as it gets hotter and hotter, it is super nice to be able to go home to a big comfortable boat with a hot shower and a full fridge. Oh yeah. Okay, well, it's absolutely glorious here. One advantage of being way over at the other side of the marina, there's still sunshine at this time of the day, which thanks to this massive mountain behind me over on the shed side of the marina, the sun goes down quite early, which actually right now is a huge advantage. Okay, I must say the terrace at the restaurant is awfully tempting right now. Okay, shower. Ah, Geordie. You are a sanctuary. Okay. Man, what a glorious day. Okay, so today is the process of sanding off all this excess sealant. And it's actually going to be an awful lot easier than it might look. Again, this is a technique I've been using for a little while, and I don't know if it's unusual, but it works for me. The biggest problem is when I'm sanding against the grain with relatively aggressive sandpaper, which I need to remove the sealant, I'm going to scratch up the grain in the wrong direction. However, I have intentionally not finish sanded the areas where that's going to be a problem, so I'll be able to clean those up after. Anyway, let's just start sanding. All right, so it's a bit labor intensive, but it does work out really, really well. And you get a nice, neat fillet, which is basically what I'm looking for. Now, the sandpaper of choice here is used Abernet sheets. The thing is, because it's a mesh, it does a really good job of cutting through the sealant, the rubber, and should work relatively quickly. I'm also just using the slight a round over I have on this sanding block that I used in the cockpit. And same deal with the windows. There we go. Okay, so I'm pretty much ready for fine sanding. I've been doing all the previous sanding with 80 and 100. So we're going to shoot to 220, and it doesn't take long to just make this buttery smooth with just a little pass of this, and that of course will make the stain sit so much more uniformly. So technically I'm ready for stain, aside from the entire foredeck. And well, another thing, these little things. Now these look very simple. These are actually the little brows that go over the windows all the way down the side that I actually asked Lloyd to remove while he was here to ease the whole process of sanding. Of course, it would be much easier to sand these on the bench and the cabin sides without them on. I had intended to stain, varnish, and basically finish the boat and then finish these separately and attach them. But now I'm thinking the idea being, if they were semi-removable, in fact only bedded with a little bit of butyl, then it would be relatively simple to resand and varnish and service over the next decade or two. However, they are attached with screws and bungs, and as soon as there's bungs, that means sanding, which means deteriorating the finish. So I'm kind of thinking I may have to reinstall these now and just coat. Okay, so these are going to get just the tiniest little bead of 295, and well, it won't really be a bead. I'll just put this on and then just wipe it a little bit. Trick now is not getting it all over the cabin side, although it would sand off very quickly and easily if I did. All right, well, now that there's another round of glue and sealant on here, there certainly won't be any stain on here today. Such is the life of looking after old boats. Okay, let's do the other side. Okay, so it's time to take the front windows out and I've sort of been looking forward to this and sort of dreading it. It's late in the day, and I'm not going to make any more dust today because at least until I get something arranged inside, I would rather not too much dust got inside. Anyway, we'll see how this goes. Some of these screws are not very happy. The main reason I switched to a hand screwdriver is because when a screw is a little suspect, sometimes actually you can drive it in just a little bit and that will break its lock with the wood or whatever it's binding with. And that kind of subtlety can't be achieved with a screw gun. There we go. There we go. Easy as pie. Now that's interesting. Of course, the windows that open weren't bedded and came out pretty easy. This one doesn't look like it's going to come out quite so easily. Yeah, there doesn't appear to be another one down there. Okay, that's the top. And now the bottom. And no fastener. So that should pop out now relatively easily. And it's out. Whew. Now you might say, Peter, why did you bother taking that out? Especially when it was so precariously terrifying. Well, to refinish it properly, I want it out anyway, but it would be so cool if all three windows could open. But anyway, it's out. Let's refinish it and think about that later. All right. Okay, there we go. Well, hello and welcome to Travels with Geordie. I'm here on the bridge deck of MV Geordie in beautiful Genoa Bay, and I'm straight out of the shower feeling a lot better than I was about half an hour ago. It's golden hour and it's a lovely time to do this. Okay, now the beer is extra special. This is Vimy Pale Ale. Now, this is a special gift that was sent out to me by Dave, who you should all know and love, who is the graphic artist that kindly and very, very skillfully produces all the graphics for the show, including the t-shirts and the opening sequence and stuff like that. And he's been very, very generous, and he sent this out to me actually a little while ago, but having very little when I say a while ago, maybe this should have been drunk a while ago. Okay then, so I'm not entirely sure I should be drinking this, but I'm going to try a little bit because I'm so keen to see what it tastes like. Most of it flooded off the deck. Well, cheers. Whoa, that's not something I should be drinking. As I said, to be fair, the beer has been aboard for quite a while. Let's just move on. And in the process of moving on, but as it was the last beer I had aboard, I do have my favorite ginger beer, which I use for dark and stormies, which is ginger beer and rum and lime. So I'm going to enjoy this while we chat over the next few minutes. Anyway, this is called the Great Gentleman Ginger Beer. I don't know if it's available where you are, but this is the sharpest, yummiest ginger beer I can find. Okay, now onto the paperwork. I am a bit uncomfortable. There has been a ton of support come in the last week, and I fully expect it is because of my announcement that I have overextended financially working on Poem, and I'm a little worried I have created the illusion that I'm in dire straits, which I'm not. I'm going to be just fine. I just have to stop the big spending, that's all. I really don't want anyone to believe that I really I'm in rough shape. I'm in just fine shape, especially with summer coming on. My expenses go way down, so I'm going to be just fine. But there is a very generous list of individuals here. But we first have to start off with the winner of last week's Travels with Geordie t-shirt, which is the Airzuki. The Airzuki. Congratulations, and get a hold of me and we'll make sure you get your shirt. And here we go. Great thanks to all the new patrons that came aboard in the last week, and they are Neil Sims, pigboat.com, James Wilson, Robert Cristiano, Robert Kaimakis, Bill Allison, and Colin Whitworth. Thank you all so much for coming aboard. And again, I hope I haven't suggested that I was in really rough shape, because I'm fine. Okay. And it carries on because there was also a tremendous amount of support on PayPal from Don Vey, David Such, Roger Somero, Jacqueline Oldhaver, Simon Vorlasek, who is a very fine fellow, by the way, I know, Pat Wolf Milner, and David Hine. Thank you all ever so much for your support, and well, it will expedite me getting back on top. Cheers, thank you very much. Okay, so now all you need is a word of the week, and to be honest, I could probably use grateful every single week, but I'm not going to. I'm going to pick a word that just came right into my head, and that is to do with trying to take that center window out in Poem a few minutes ago. And for me, it was rather suspenseful because I really didn't want to have to pull so hard that I cracked the glass, although I'm very happy I got it out. So the word of the week this week will be suspenseful, or suspense, or something like that. You know what to do with it. Cheers. Thanks ever so much to all of you, and we'll see you next week. Now that is suspense. It's getting late. You all saw it. Why didn't I see it? This whopping big bronze Robertson screw right here. How is it possible I overlooked that? Okay, all right, okay.